now, yeah. All right, guys. So what I want to start with is just quick revision on our if statement. So let's say I had a variable. Let's just create a variable. If I do like a maths, let's say we want to do a symbols program. So we create the interview. I get confused with these things. The Java on that. All right. So we've got an integer variable, and then the mark can be anything. But let's use input box for now. Input box. It's not going to work now. Now, so I'm working on my laptop now, so I'm just starting a new program just because I don't have the other one with me right now. I literally just tried my laptop and it's working, so I'm happy. So I'll copy all the stuff a little bit later, so I'll have it next time. But I think after today's lesson, you should be able to complete that other program. So that will sort of become your homework for the weekend. If you can complete that program then for me for next time, then you should, because we did all the maths, we did all the strings, and today I'm going to do the if statement with the for loops. So then you should have everything that's needed for that. This will be a string to int. If I do something that you're not too sure of, just tell me. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to ask the user to type in a number is subject mark. I'm going to say the default mark was 65. All right, then we're just going to convert it to integer to put it in there. So now we've got that. So what do you think if I want to now create a if else statement that will show me the symbol for that person? But he's obviously his mark can be anything. So what do you suggest? How should that look? Guide me a bit. What do you think?
So can you repeat the question, sir?
All right, so the person's going to type in his mark there. And now what we want to do is we want to display his symbol. So if he's got a 81, we want to display an A. If he's got a 72, we want to show B. If he's got a 20, we want to show a F. Yes. So I'll go if and then. All so normal. So let's say everything 80 and above is A, 70s are B's, 60s are C's, and up until down until we get our F's. Yeah.
Wait, isn't it like
Yes, I can. Sorry, I didn't hear everything. So if num is greater than or equal to 80, yeah, so then we can go show message to A. Yeah. So how do I do?
what's the A for, sir?
Just to show the symbol. So if it's got more than
Oh,
80, you'll have a symbol A.
oh yeah.
All right. So how do I do my B? So okay, let's put it as a comment there. So from 100 to 80 is an A, and then from 79 to 70 is a B, From 69 to 60 is a C, and so forth. And that will carry on until we get to less than 40 is a F. All right, so what do you think? What can we now do here to check the next one for B's?
If num greater or equals to 79,
So you just
70,
if num
smaller could be like
sorry, say again.
else.
Yes. Else if, yeah. $70. Okay, yes, talk to me.
Is there a way to put a restriction on like so that it like stops at 70?
So with this one, what you have to remember, with our if statement, we will check if it's greater than 80. It will only look at the else if this is not true. So it will only get to this stage if it's already smaller than 80. If it's more than 80, it's going to do that. And because of the else if, because of this else, it means this is false. So it means it will be less than 80. So we just need to check if it's more than 70 or equal to show the B.
Right.
And no, not in this case, because if you went and created separate ifs, which is not good, but if you did it this route where you had a separate if, then you would need to have your and to check for if it's less than 80 at least as well. But because of the way we're doing it, because of the else if, this else will only happen if this is not true. So they link to each other. So then it just makes our life easier. I'm just going to add the begin and end. All right, so then now C. All right, so when Sir taught you last year, did he not use the begin and ends?
We did, so we did.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so what the begin and end does, if you don't have them, in this case, this would work fine actually, because there's only one statement. If you don't have begin and end, as long as you've only got one statement, it's fine. Once you want to do two things, let's say if it was greater than 80, we wanted to show this message and we wanted to do something else, then it would be a problem. So that's why I like teaching that you always put a begin and end, so that you sort of cover if there's more than one statement inside. If that was another statement, this would work fine because it's in the begin and end. Did you just want to say else? So yeah, so if you just said else, what it would do then, so if it's greater than 80, it's going to show A, otherwise it's going to show B. So if the answer was, let's say the guy's symbol was 50, it will also show B. The else, if else without a condition means anything else. So if it's not greater than 80, it would automatically do the B. So then we can't do anything else. Then we can't do C, D, E. It's sort of, because everything else will be caught in there. So because we've got multiple conditions, you have to add the else if, because you'll see what we'll do now. Just get my other begin and ends back. Because what we'll do now that was the B part. So now we're going to go else again. What this else will say, so if it's greater than 80, it's going to show the A. Otherwise, if it's not, then if it's greater than 70, it's going to show this. Sorry. Can you still hear me? Or is the talks very loud? Okay. Okay. Else, then we're going to go if again. If our num is then greater than 60 or equal to, I've got my equals. So if it's greater or equal to 60, then we can now do the rest. So then we can do this piece. I'll just copy this to make our life easier. So then we can put our C there.
Yes.
And now this thing is just rinse and repeat basically. So we can then do the same thing. Let's check if it's greater or equal to 50 to do our D, and then do greater or equal to 40, which is our E. And then we want to stop at F. I said we're stopping at F. So what we can do then after this, now we can just go else and then say begin with our show. So how this will work, this means for all other options. So if it's more than 80, do this. If it's not more than 80, look at this one. If it's more than 70, then do this. But if it's not more than 80 and not more than 70, then do this one. If it's more than 60. But if it's not more than 80 or 70 or 60, then it's going to go to this one. If it's more than 50. If it's not any of those four, it's going to check, is it more than 40? Then do this. But the else means if you went through all these and none of them worked, then just do this. So it's the else is like in all other cases, just display an if. Oh, I didn't even save my thing.
Yes.
I'm just going to save it there. We play this thing. Let's see what happens. So then we try 65. It'll show us C. All right. If else, everybody good?
Yeah, it's all right. So
Can remember it a bit. Just click this button. If button. All right. So the next structure that I want to do is I spoke about the for loop. So how this works? Okay, maybe to that. Just so the if statement is what we call. It's also a data structure, but it's called a conditional data structure. So it allows us to do a certain code depending on if a condition is met or not. So the switch case, you guys did that as well. I remember you said you did. The case statement, yes.
yes.
So the case statement is also a conditional structure. You can choose between the two. You don't need to must use switch or must use if. It's literally the one that you feel comfortable with, you can use. I generally use if always. So in grade 10, you would be, sir might have forced you in some tests to use specifically the case, but from after grade 10, you won't be forced anymore. They'll literally just ask you, like, display the symbol, and you can choose which one you want to use. So I like to, yes, if you'll get 100% even in grade 12. Yeah. There's never a case when you must use the case statement, because case is not so much better in any circumstance. When we go to the next part, what I'm going to do here now, we're going to work with our for loop. So this will be the for loop. So the next sort of chapter that we're doing is looping structures. So for looping structures, that is if you want to do the same set of code multiple times over. So there's three options you've well, there's sort of two options, but it's actually three options. You get a repeat loop, you get a while loop, and then you get the for loop. So the repeat and the while are very similar. It just depends on when the condition is applied. But our for loop is then the alternative. So this is like what we did now. We asked the user for one number and we displayed the symbol. But what if we knew there was 10 people in the class? Now we're going to need to click the button 10 times, which is irritating. So now what we can do is we can use a for loop to say, do that set of code 10 times for me. And that's sort of how the for loop works. So that the for loop or any looping structure allows you to do a set number of code lines a certain amount of times. Our for loop is called a unconditional loop. Unconditional in that it happens a fixed amount of times. So the for loop, if I tell you do this 10 times, we're going to use a for loop. If I ask you to do it 5 times or 7 times, or if you know there's 10 kids in the class that you need to do something 10 times, we'll use for loop. The while loop or the repeat loop, which we'll do later on, that one is for if it's an unknown amount. So that's a conditional loop. So that means if the guy wants to type in names until somebody says stop, or you want to just type in names until something happens, or you want to type in numbers until a certain total is met. So that is a conditional loop. So it will only happen, we don't know how many times. Sometimes it could happen 4 times, other times 10 times. We don't know how many times. And then we'll use our while loop or our repeat loop. But for us, for now, for today, we're just going to focus on the for loop. So this happens a fixed amount of times. So you'll see, like in that test assignment or that homework I gave you, the two bottom, it would have said do it 7 times. Type in 7 names or do 10 random numbers. There's like a fixed amount of the thing you need to do. And for that, we need a for loop. All right, so let's go in there. So how the for loop is actually very easy. The only thing that we'll need for a for loop is we'll need a variable. So what we've got in our for loop, we've got a counter that's sort of built in that keeps track of how many times something happens. So I generally like I, type integer. So if you say for and we click tab, so the for loop, yeah, so the for loop happens very quickly actually. You just say for and then you click the tab key and it sort of gives you the whole structure already. And then we can just add maybe a begin and an end to say everything inside here should happen that amount of times. And you'll see the for loop has already got a variable I here. That's why I created the I one there. So the default, they use I, and that I variable is just keeping track of how many times the loop is run. You'll see, so by default, I starts at 0, and it's, I want to say it's sort of like English if you read it. For while, say for I is equal to 0, 2, and then this, you must say just how many times do you want to do it. So I is going to start at 0. If we want to do it 10 times, up until where do you think it needs to go? If it starts at 0.
So,
Yes. All right. If it goes to 10, just remember, because you start at 0, you will actually you'll do a 0, and then a 1, then 2, 3, 4. Yes.
option.
So because we're starting at 0, 10 is actually 11 times. Why they start at 0 is actually when we do arrays as well. When we start with arrays, you'll realize that an array is like a variable that can just store multiple values. So, and how they use that is you have to sort of keep the position of where the value is stored. And for some reason, all programming languages, they love that the first element is always 0. I don't know why, they just do it. Everybody, Java does it, Delphi does it, C++ does it. Everybody wants the first element to be in 0 position. So that's why our for loop also generally starts at 0. And I don't know if you remember, when I clicked for and I clicked tab, because it started at 0, look what the default, what they said. They said list count, so the amount of values you've got, but minus 1. So they sort of guided us there by saying the amount of values you want, so we want to do it 10 times, then you should just minus 1. So if you want to do it 10 times, you go from 0 to 9. Now, obviously, this is just the default one. We can change that. I mean, you don't need to start at 0. We can say, I want to start at 1. And then this will go to 10. And that's fine. Then my for loop will start at 1, go to 10. That will also happen 10 times. So none of that matters. It's nice to stay at the 0 just because, as I said, we're going to move on to arrays where the first element is in position 0. So then our for loops need to start at 0, and it sort of just makes us used to it. But yeah, doesn't matter. So maybe to just show you what this does, let's just do a show message inside here that will display I. So we just remember I is an integer, so we just need to change our int to a string. So I created a variable I, and then I made my for loop so that I starts at 1 and then goes to 10. And I'm just displaying I. So let's see what it does when I play this program. So now if I click the for loop, it gives me 1 and 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now obviously because of that, if you wanted to, for whatever reason, start at 99 and go to 105, and then so your for loop variable just starts there, and it will go to that one. So generally we won't do random stuff like that because the purpose is not to count random numbers. Our for loop's job is actually just to do a certain set of code a certain amount of times and to keep track of how many times that happened. So generally our for loop starts at 0 and then goes to the amount of times we want it to be done. One less. Any questions so far on this?
Sir,
Yes.
okay, let's say you use, okay, so can you give an example of what you would use this for, sir?
Yeah, okay, we'll do that now.
One instruction that gives on how to like do it.
That's useful. All right. So with this, just one thing to keep track of or take note of. So remember I said the for loop is there to keep track of how many times this happens. So our I will always be an integer. It can't be a double because we can't count in fractions. You know, if you count, it's always 1, 2, 3, 4. Like if you have to count how many cars there are. Generally, except if you had a scrapyard, but generally you won't count in fractions. You'll just count there's 1 car, 2 car, 3 car. So the I is always an integer, can never be double. So what we can do, let me just see, button 1. So I'm just going to call my button 1. And just click. So what this line of, I don't know if I'm confusing you now. Maybe I mustn't. Okay, what that does, this will actually just click that button for us. But let me show you without that. Remember we did the person with these marks to work out his symbol. So let's say there was 5 people in the class. So let's do it for. I can take all that code and put it in there. Just create my num as well. So now I can ask the mark and then display the symbol. But now I put all of that. Do any of you know what's a shortcut for formatting again? I can't remember. No, not that.
Oh, to go back to your form, sir.
No, formatting. To just do all the indentation nicely. There's a key that you can press that will do all this indentation for you. Just I will do it now.
Also, so will the box pop up 5 times now? If
Yes, okay, I'll do that now. In any case, so I just copied that code and put it inside my for loop. So now if I click my for loop, it's going to ask for a mark, and I say 30. Click enter, CF, automatically comes out 50. So second time, so this is the third time. Click this, fourth time, fifth time, and then stop. So now it basically asks me 5 times because I had 5 students that I want to see that this happens. So now we can sort of make it better as well. Like if you had a rich edit, if we had a rich edit there, we can say that we want to, in our rich edit, we want to append yes, that's thank you. I get so confused. All right, got lines with add, and then we can put our symbol in there. So by doing this, let's just choose others. Update that. So now what this will do is we can now actually store all 5 students, their symbols in that rich edit underneath each other.
oh, so it's doing like this 5 times worth of pressing the button once.
Yes,
So like, oh,
that is exactly what it is. So whatever code we put in here, it will do that amount of times that the for loop says. So my for loop says 4 because it goes from 0. So let's say we set the 9 years because we've got 10 students. So if I run this now, and I click this,
yeah, yeah. Actually, it looks so familiar.
and then you can see all the marks in there of all the students. Yeah, all right. And so that's the whole, I want to say, idea behind it, so that we can do one set of code and let it run multiple times. Now, some of you might say, oh, but sir, couldn't I have just gone, copied this code and just pasted it 9 times? And yes, you could have, and it would have been just as efficient. But the problem is, let's say you made a mistake now in that code. Then you need to go and fix it 9 times. And now suddenly your program looks more complex as well, because now instead of having, how many lines is this? 3, 6, 12, 15, 18, 20 lines roundabout. So instead of having 20 lines to go through, now because you copied it 10 times, you've got 200 lines to go through to look and fix the mistake that happened. So while in this, you fix it once, and then for all 10 times, it is actually fixed. So that's sort of where we go to. But also when we start working with arrays, we're going to have like 10 names and 10, or we can work with 100 names and 100 numbers and sort them and do all that, and it won't matter. because the loop will just do it for us. So that's also the nice thing. Like when we do a random number, I'm going to ask you guys to quickly help me with this one. If I've got a button here and I want to display 50 random numbers in this rich edit, let's just do that. This is side. Okay, so what I want now, I want 50 random numbers. Let's put in, you must tell me how to do this. I want 50 random whole numbers between, let's say, let's spice it up a bit. 50 random whole even numbers between 20 and 50. All right. So help me a bit. What'll help you? So it's even numbers. It's in whole numbers. So let's use it. I'm going to use a ran integer, and we're going to use I as well. All right. So we've got those two variables. Tell me, who thinks what? Even though it's wrong, what I tell my class is I love wrong answers. I hate it when somebody actually gives me the right answer, because then I can't teach the rest of the class on that. I love when it's a wrong answer, because then we can look at why it's wrong and how we can fix it. So don't be shy. I love it if you give me something that's wrong. So tell me,
So
what do you think?
you would say 4 0 to 49.
Okay, so do my for loop from 0 to 49. I'm happy with that.
So do we want to display it in the rich edit so the input box?
Yes, in the rich edit.
The even number thingy makes it harder.
Okay, ignore the even for now. We can fix it afterwards.
I random.
All right, so because our I is used to keep track of how many times the loop runs, try not to use I, except if you want to affect that. So we actually want to just use our random variable. Yes.
So like you have to make a separate variable if you want to do 4.
Yes.
Use 4,
Yes.
basically.
So 4 needs to have its own variable to do just counting how many times something happens. And then you'll have your own other variables to do their job. All right, so how will my random number look?
Random and then open bracket. Oh wait, isn't it open bracket first?
A random range, I need math on top for that, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, let me add math for you. It's fine, you can go random range, I don't mind for that. So random range, yeah. What do you want to put in random? Yes, just do 2 to 50. After 20,51. Okay. All right. Will that give me an integer though?
What do you mean, sir?
Okay. No, I'm just asking if random range will give me a integer. It's fine. Yeah. And then how do I display that in my rich edit?
Spread output lines dot add.
Okay, I didn't change my name. Sorry. Okay. Well, it's an integer, so let's go into string. But yeah. Yeah, that's correct. All right, let's quickly run this. Let's see what it does. Just click it. Boom. And there you've got 50 random numbers. Just like that in these 3 lines of code. Oh, can't you see the output? Ah, genie. All right. Let me quickly fix that. Oh, sorry. I tried some. No, yeah, none of you will see it. Let me just quickly change this. Share screen. All right. Call if you see my code.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see it now. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
All right. See, so click the button. 50 random numbers just like that. All right, so now let's just think a little bit of maths. If we're thinking even number, ah, well done, well done.
Look at
Yes.
you in Washington.
So you'll just generate the random from 10. So we divide our range by 2 to get the half, and they will just times by 2. And there's automatically there. Well done. So that's obviously the best way to do it. But there is another way you could have done it with if statements. Do any of you sort of know what we could have done with? All right,
No, no. So I'll be back in like 1 minute, sir.
go for it. All right, so let's just say again. Oh, okay, no problem. I am busy recording the lesson as well, so I'll upload the recordings. So quick recap: what we've done, we did our if statement. So we asked the user to type in a mark for a subject, and then we just went through how does the if work again. So we'll say if that number is greater than 80, we'll show an A, and then we did the else if. So what I explained with that was, if this is true, it will do that, and it will ignore all of this. But if this thing is false, if that's not true, then only it will look at this part and see if it's greater than 70. And only if both of them is false, then it will look at this one. And that's sort of how this one works. Then I showed them the for loop is something new that we looked at. You at least don't need to type that. So what you do with a for loop, you just say for and then a tab, and it gives you the whole structure. And a for loop, sort of like the word says, loop means it's to do the same set of code multiple times over. So, and this I is our counter. You'll see it's a variable, let's type integer. And we start at 0 and go to a certain amount of numbers. So if you say 9, it goes from 0 to 9, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is actually 10 times because we start at 0. So doing this code, just adding that line, it will do this code we've done with the symbols 10 times. So you can do it for like 10 kids. And then what we just did now, I asked them to help me to create code so that we can generate 50 random whole even numbers between 20 and 50. So do our for loop. That will do it 50 times for us. So we can get the 50 random numbers. And then we generated that, which we times by 2 to make them even and display them. But then I told them there's another way we could do this using our if statement. So that's the one I want to look at now. So if I generate a random number between 20 and 50, but now I only want to, well, I want to display all the numbers because I want 50 numbers, but I want to display even numbers. So what do you think I can do with my if? So this is now to all of you. What can I do in an if statement to fix it for us? How can we know if something is even or not?
By the second number not being even.
agree. Modern div, could that help you?
What is
What do we use mod for again? To keep the leftovers. So when I divide something by 2, what will the leftover be if it's an even number? It will be 0 always. And if it's an odd number, what will my leftovers be?
yes?
A 1 always. So what we can do is, so if we take our random number and we mod it by 2, and the remainder is 1, do you agree it's an odd number?
Yeah.
All right, so what we can do, wait, let's not do that. So we always want to display, so my rich is not going to be in my if. Just if it's an odd number, what do you think we can do to the number to make it even?
Three. Two.
Okay, but remember, yes, we can just say our ran, just
Ew.
add 1 to it. Because I mean, it can be 49, or it could have been, so we just, so
Glitching on that.
so if it's an odd number, so if we divide it by 2 and there's a remainder of 1, then just add 1 and then display. And then obviously, if it's not, there's no else spot. So if it is not that, then it will just display it and not add 1.
So,
Yes.
so can you explain that uncoded modding? I'm a bit lost in that.
All right. Okay, so remember how mod works. It will divide it by, in this case, it's going to divide it by 2 and only shows remainder. So if we look at options here, let's look at some sums. So if I say 17, do all of you know in Discord how to post answers in the chat? If you go to question part, that you can post something, you can type something in there. Can all of you see that? All right.
Yes.
So what I want you guys to do for me, I'm going to put, let's say 10 questions on here. I want you to type the answers in there, but type it all in one and click enter. So like all the answers comes up one time. And then I just want to see if all of us understand what the mod and the div does. So I'm going to just put in 5 questions. I'm just going to do 5 so we don't waste time. So um, yeah, let's do mod 5. Okay, that one's answered. If I do 17.
So what does mod do again?
So mod only gives you remainder. So sorry, maybe I should have done that first. So if we've got a number like 13 and I mod it by 5, now let's mod it by 3. Yeah, let's mod it by 5. So then if we say 13 divided by 5, what will we get?
Yes. True. Answer.
All right, so if you only give me the whole number, what will the whole number be? So when I divide 13 by 5, do you agree it will be 2 comma something?
Yeah. 5.
Yes. So for now, if we do div, you'll just give me the 2. So you only give me the whole number part of it. And we don't care, we don't round off. So even though if it was 14, where technically if we look at it, 14 divided by 5, if we do the normal real division, this would have given us the 2,8. But then if we use div, you just give me the 2 part, only the whole number. And then for mod, you basically look what got lost. So 5 times 2 is
5, 10.
so 5 times 2 is 10, but the original number was 14. So how many got lost?
Oh,
4. Do you agree? So that is what mod gives you. So div is only the whole number, and then mod is the remainder, so that the number that got lost. So it's got nothing to do with the fraction part necessarily. You just look, div would have given me the whole number, so 2 times 5 is 10, but there was 14, so 4 got lost.
okay. That makes sense.
All right, so see if you can get these ones, and I'm just gonna mod 2. All right, so there's 2, 4, 6, 7 questions quickly. Should be relatively quick. And so see if you can do those ones, and then just go post it in Discord for me. And just then we can quickly see.
Um, so then should we like do the div plus like this?